I'm starting to think Oda just wakes up every morning and asks himself, how can I traumatize a fictional child today? If you're a kid in the One Piece world and you have 2 living parents and a stable home, run. Today, we're looking at 10 characters whose lives were so miserable, they make a midlife crisis look like a tropical vacation. Donquixote Doflamingo, the fallen god. Doflamingo's tragedy is a masterclass in how pride and pain can create a monster. He wasn't born in a gutter. He was born a celestial dragon, literally a god among men in Marigeos. He grew up believing that the world existed solely for his pleasure. But then, his father, Homing, in an act of pure, naive kindness, decided to renounce their godhood to live as humans. Homing's mistake was thinking the world would welcome them. Instead, the moment they stepped down from their ivory tower, the collective hatred of the entire world fell on them like a landslide. For centuries, the celestial dragons had oppressed the people, and now, the people had a god they could finally touch. Doflamingo went from eating the finest delicacies to scavenging through trash heaps. He watched his mother, a woman who once lived in absolute luxury, wither away and die in a filthy shack because no doctor would treat a monster. The breaking point came when a mob tracked them down. They didn't just beat the family. They nailed Doflamingo, his brother Rosinante, and his father to the side of a burning building and pelted them with arrows. While hanging there, Doflamingo didn't beg for mercy. Amidst the screams and the fire, he felt his conqueror's haki awaken for the first time. He didn't see humans looking for justice. He saw garbage that needed to be exterminated.
You'll pay for this! You wretches! I won't die today! To survive whatever torment you throw at me! Remember my words! And I will murder every single one of you!
Doflamingo blamed his father for every ounce of their suffering. In his mind, his father hadn't liberated them. He had robbed them of their birthright. At age 10, Doflamingo took a pistol and shot his father in the back of the head while his brother, Rosinante, watched in horror. He took his father's severed head back to Marigeos, thinking the other celestial dragons would welcome him back for correcting the family's mistake. But they looked at him with disgust, calling him a tainted human and barring the gates forever. The world's greatest grudge. This is the core of Doflamingo's character. He is a god who was cast down, and he spent the rest of his life trying to set the world on fire as revenge. He didn't just want to be a pirate. He wanted to destroy the entire world that the celestial dragons ruled. He took over Dressrosa not just for power, but to turn a peaceful kingdom into a twisted puppet show, proving to the world that everyone, even the most righteous person, can be turned into a monster if you pull the right strings. While Law and Robin sought a place to belong, Doflamingo decided that if he couldn't have his throne back, he would make sure there was no world left to rule. Nico Robin, the demon child of Ohara. Nico Robin, the demon child's liberation. If Oda's goal was to show how the world can systematically crush a human soul, he used Nico Robin as his blueprint. Her tragedy isn't just that she lost her home, it's that she was taught, from the age of 8, that her very breath was a sin against the world. Robin was a child prodigy, a genius who just wanted to understand the history of the world. But in the eyes of the world government, curiosity is a capital offense. During the Buster Call on Ohara, Robin didn't just see buildings fall. She saw the collective knowledge of humanity burned to ash. She watched her mother, Alvia, choose a stack of books over her own daughter's hand, and she watched her only friend, the giant Saul, be frozen alive while laughing. Saul's final command was for her to go to the sea, promising her that somewhere out there, friends are waiting for you. For the next 2 decades, Robin lived in a nightmare. Labeled the Demon Child, with a 79 million berry bounty, she became a nomad of the underworld. Every time she found a place to sleep, the people she trusted would try to kill her or sell her to the Marines for a payday. She didn't join criminal organizations because she was evil. She joined them because they were the only places where a monster could hide. By the time she met Luffy, Robin had completely given up. She was a hollow shell who used people before they could use her, fully expecting to die alone and hated. Everything changed at Eni's lobby. For the first time in her life, Robin found people who didn't want to use her, they just wanted her back. But Robin was so traumatized that she tried to sacrifice herself to save them. She believed that as long as she was with the Straw Hats, the world government would never stop hunting them. She was ready to walk through the gates of justice to her death, just to keep her friends safe. The turning point is one of the most iconic moments in all of anime. Luffy and the crew stood on top of the courthouse, facing the entire might of the world government. Luffy didn't give her a speech about justice. He simply told Sogeking to burn the world government's flag. By declaring war on the entire world just for her sake, Luffy finally broke the curse Saul had warned her about. He forced her to confront the one thing she had suppressed for 20 years, her own will to exist. Standing there, with snot and tears streaming down her face, the ugly cry of a person finally being freed from a lifetime of chains, she screamed the words that changed the series forever.
I want to live!
Tony Chopper, the blue-nosed outcast. Chopper's tragedy is one of the most personal in the series. He was born a reindeer with a blue nose. His own herd rejected him. Then he ate a human fruit and became a hybrid, so humans shot at him, calling him a Yeti. He was a monster to everyone until Dr. Hirulik took him in. Hirulik wasn't a great doctor, but he was a perfect father. When Hirulik fell terminally ill, Chopper spent days trekking through blizzards, fighting off his old herd, and losing a horn just to find a miracle mushroom. But because Chopper didn't know medicine yet, he accidentally fed Hirulik a poisonous mushroom. Hirulik knew it would kill him, but he ate it anyway because he was so moved by Chopper's love. Imagine the trauma. The first person to ever love you died because of a cure you worked yourself to the bone to find. Trafalgar Law, the ghost of the White City. If life is a game of cards, Law was dealt a dead man's hand before he even learned to walk. He wasn't born a cynical pirate. He was a brilliant child from Flevance, the White City. It was a place that looked like a fairy tale, where everything from the bricks to the clothes was made of amber lead. But that beauty was a death sentence. The world government knew for generations that amber lead was toxic, but they suppressed the truth for profit. By the time Law's generation was born, the poisoning was terminal. When the surrounding nations realized Flevance was dying, they didn't send doctors. They sent soldiers to build a wall around the city and execute everyone inside. Law watched his parents get gunned down in their own clinic. He watched his little sister, Nami, hide in a closet while their home was set on fire. To escape, Law had to crawl under a mountain of rotting corpses, staying silent as marine bayonets stabbed through the bodies around him. He emerged from the ruins of his civilization as a boy with white spots on his skin and a heart filled with nothing but a desire to destroy everything before he died. That's when he met the Donquixote family. While everyone saw a monster, Doflamingo's brother, Corazon, saw a child in pain. For years, Corazon had pretended to be a clumsy, mute fool who hated kids, but it was a triple-layered lie. Corazon was actually a marine commander working undercover to take down his brother's criminal empire. When Corazon realized Law was dying, he broke his cover, spoke for the first time in years, and kidnapped Law to find a cure. They spent 6 months traveling to every hospital in the world, only to have doctors scream in horror at the white lead boy. In a moment that defined their bond, Law overheard Corazon crying over him while he slept, saying, "It's you who has it the hardest, Law." For the first time since Flevance fell, someone loved Law enough to cry for him. The climax of this tragedy happened on Minion Island. Corazon successfully stole the op fruit and forced Law to eat it, finally curing his disease. Bleeding out and near death, Corazon gave Law a secret document containing Doflamingo's plans and told him to give it to the Navy. He told Law, "Give this to the Marines, and the island will be saved." Law, desperately trying to save his friend, ran into the first Marine he could find. In a cruel twist of fate, that Marine was Virgo. Law didn't know that Virgo was a double agent working for Doflamingo. Law, crying and hopeful, practically fell into the arms of his enemy, begging him to help his friend. When Virgo realized Corazon was a spy, he brutally beat them both. Law's first attempt at trust resulted in the very person he was trying to save being marked for death. Because of that mistake, Doflamingo arrived to execute his traitor brother. Corazone's final act was hiding Law inside a treasure chest and using his com powers to make sure Law couldn't make a sound. Law had to sit in absolute darkness, just inches away, while he heard the muffled gunshots of Doflamingo murdering the only man who ever loved him. Because of Corazone's powers, Law couldn't even scream as his heart broke for a second time. He had to crawl out of that chest and walk away into a blizzard, finally free from his disease, but carrying the crushing guilt that his attempt to save Corazon was what led the executioner to his door. Law isn't just a cool captain with a sword. He's a man who carries the weight of a silence that was forced upon him during the most painful moment of his life. Every tattoo on his finger's death is a reminder of where he came from, and the Corazon on his back is the only reason he's still standing. We're halfway through, and honestly, Oda is a menace for writing some of these. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the darker side of the Grand Line, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next lore drop. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these backstories would you absolutely not want to experience? Personally, I'm stuck between Robin and Law. I couldn't imagine being 8 years old and having the entire world hunting me for 20 years, or being Law and having to sit in a chest in total silence while the only person I loved was executed inches away. Let me know which one ruined you the most. Senor Pink, the weight of a bonnet. Pink is the villain who stole everyone's heart. He was once a high-ranking officer in the Donquixote family, but he fell in love with a woman named Russian who hated pirates. So, he lied and said he was a banker. While he was away on a mission, their infant son, Gimlet, died of a fever. When Russian found out Pink wasn't a banker, she ran out into a storm in grief and was caught in a landslide, leaving her in a vegetative state. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't look at him, nothing. Until one day, Pink put on his late son's baby bonnet as a joke. For the first time, she smiled. From that day on, Pink discarded his expensive suits and started wearing baby clothes, bonnet, diaper, and all. He endured the laughter of the entire world just to keep that one fading smile alive. Portgas D, Ace, the burden of the demon's blood. Ace didn't just grow up as an orphan. He grew up believing his very existence was a crime. As the son of the pirate king, Gold, Roger, Ace spent his childhood hearing people say that if Roger had a child, that child deserved to be tortured and executed. Because of this, Ace grew up with a deep, dark question. Should I have been born? He was a ticking time bomb of resentment and loneliness until he met Sabo and Luffy. They became brothers not by blood, but by sharing a cup of sake. For the first time, Ace found people who didn't care whose son he was. They just cared about him. Ace eventually found a father figure in Whitebeard, the one man strong enough to protect him from his own lineage. But the tragedy began when Blackbeard, a member of Ace's own division, murdered a crewmate and fled. Ace's pride and sense of duty forced him to hunt Blackbeard down, leading to his defeat and his imprisonment in Impel Down. The Paramount War at Marineford wasn't just a battle. It was a global event centered on Ace's life. Luffy fought through hell, falling from the sky and facing 3 admirals just to reach the scaffold. And he did it. Luffy actually managed to free Ace. For a few seconds, it looked like a miracle. They were fighting side by side, finally about to escape. But then, Admiral Akainu insulted Whitebeard. Ace, unable to let his father's honor be dragged through the dirt, turned back to fight. Akainu aimed a lethal lava fist at a defenseless, exhausted Luffy. To save his little brother, Ace threw himself in the way. The fist went straight through Ace's chest. In his final moments, Ace didn't cry about his pain. He cried because he finally found the answer to his lifelong question. He died with a smile, whispering his final words, "Thank you for loving me." This is the moment that redefined One Piece. Luffy didn't just cry, he shattered. The sight of his brother's life slipping through his fingers caused a mental breakdown so severe that Luffy went catatonic. His mind literally shut down to protect him from the pain. This wasn't just a loss. It was the first time Luffy realized that willpower wasn't enough to save the people he loved. It forced the 2-year time skip and changed Luffy from a reckless kid into a man who understood the true weight of the sea. Sanji, the failed prince. Sanji was born a prince of Germa 66, but to his father, Judge, He was a failed product because he had human emotions and loved to cook. Judge locked him in a dungeon with an iron mask and told the world Sanji was dead. After escaping, Sanji ended up on a shipwreck with a pirate named Zeph. They were stranded on a rock for 85 days. Zeph gave Sanji all the bread and kept a massive bag for himself. When Sanji eventually tried to kill Zeph for the food, he found out Zeph's bag was actually full of gold. Zeph had given Sanji every crumb of food and had eaten his own leg to stay alive. Sanji's life is a constant battle with the guilt of feeling like he's a waste of a life someone else sacrificed everything for. Nami, the thief of 100 million berries. Nami's story is about the slow death of hope. Her mother, Belmere, was a former Marine who raised Nami and Nojiko on a tangerine farm. When the Arlong pirates invaded, Belmere was 100,000 berries short of the tax required to live. She could have lied and said she didn't have kids, but she couldn't deny her daughters. She was executed in front of them, and Nami was kidnapped because of her talent for drawing maps. Arlong made a deal. Pay him 100 million berries, and he'd free the village. Nami spent 8 years as a thief, branded with the tattoo of the man who killed her mother, stealing from pirates and living as a traitor in the eyes of her neighbors, only for Arlong to pay off a corrupt marine to steal all her money right as she reached her goal. Brook, 50 years of solitude. Brook's tragedy is the stuff of nightmares. His crew, the Rumbar pirates, were wiped out by poison in the Florian Triangle. They knew they were dying, so they spent their final moments recording a song for their whale friend, Laboon. Brook watched his friends drop one by one, their voices fading until he was the only one left singing. Thanks to his devil fruit, his soul came back, but it took a year to find his ship. By the time he did, he was just a skeleton. He then spent 50 years, 5 decades alone on a ghost ship. No sun, no people, just the skeletons of his friends. He nearly went insane, performing for an audience of corpses, kept alive only by a promise made to a whale half a century ago. Batholomew Kuma, the world's most selfless slave. If Oda has a PhD in suffering, Kuma's backstory was his thesis. Most characters on this list had a before and after, a time when they were happy before the tragedy hit. For Kuma, there was no before. Kuma was born into the extinct buccaneer race, people with the blood of giants who committed a great sin against the world government centuries ago. Because of this, Kuma was born a slave. At age 4, he watched his mother die from the sheer brutality of the celestial dragons. Shortly after, his father was shot in the head right in front of him just for making Kuma laugh to drown out the sounds of torture. Kuma didn't start his life with a toy or a book. He started it with a chain around his neck. When Kuma gained the pawpaw fruit, the world saw a power that could repel anything: air, people, even buildings. But Kuma used it for something much more painful. He became a priest in the Sorbet Kingdom, and every week, he would use his powers to extract the physical pain and suffering from the elderly and the sick. He would pull out a massive, glowing paw print of pure agony from these people, leaving them healed and smiling. But that pain doesn't just vanish into the air. Kuma had to take it all into his own body. Every single week, he would voluntarily endure the collective suffering of an entire village, collapsing in a pool of his own blood just so others could walk without pain. He wasn't just a priest. He was a literal sponge for the world's misery. Kuma and Ginny spent years as revolutionaries, and it was the only time Kuma tasted peace. He loved Ginny, but in a move that breaks your heart, he refused to marry her. He knew the world government hunted buccaneers, and he loved her so much that he stayed distant to protect her from his own cursed blood. But destiny in One Piece is cruel. Ginny was kidnapped by a celestial dragon to be a forced wife. When she was finally discarded, years later, she was infected with the sapphire scale disease. Kuma rushed to find her, but he was too late. He found her dead body in a church, holding a baby named Bonnie. When Kuma discovered that Bonnie had the same terminal illness, he went to the ends of the earth to find a cure. He found Dr. Vegapunk, but the world government intercepted the deal. Saint Saturn gave Kuma a choice: save Bonnie's life, but in exchange, Kuma must become a mindless weapon and have his own consciousness erased. Kuma agreed without a single second of hesitation. He spent his final months traveling the world with Bonnie, showing her the sights. all while knowing that every day brought him closer to the moment his mind would be wiped clean. Kuma lived as a slave, died as a machine, and spent his entire life literally bleeding so that the people around him wouldn't have to. Let me know in the comments which character's story made you want to call your mom and tell her you love her. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the anime manga archive, and I'll see you in the next one.